You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a wash machine.
Conte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot. Oh my word!
Unbelievable. We ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, and available right here on southamptondelivery.com. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether you've been here before or this is your first time, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it, and it's definitely going to be more enjoyable than the actual match that took place at the London Stadium between Southampton and West Ham. I said it before, I'll say it again. That is the only stadium I've ever visited for a Premier League match. I was there last year to witness a 3-0 defeat in Mark Hughes' first match in charge. I was there with Freddie from The Ugly Inside, and afterwards we went back and we talked about The Ugly Inside turning 30 years old, and we went to a pub. We drank quite a bit. We had a very good time. It was a good start to my trip, my vacation, and all of that, and it only seemed right to catch up with Freddie last week on the preview show, and then have him on again this week for this show, just to kind of bring it all back. And we were really thinking that it couldn't be the same. We couldn't have the same result. We couldn't have a worse result. And of course, again, we lost 3-0. But context this season, I think, is much different. So we'll talk about the match. We'll talk about some of the performances of some of the guys who haven't been in the team, who are maybe given a chance under Ralph this time. And we'll look forward to see who potentially may be on their way out at the end of the season. We don't go into the preseason trips to China and Dublin and everything else, or Austria. But, you know, we got plenty of time for that after the season is here. But for now, let's catch up with Freddie, and I'll talk to you at the end of the show. We'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Freddie from The Ugly Inside. You will recognize his voice, but there's no video because this is just a podcast. But Freddie, last season, I had the opportunity to come over to London. You basically took me by the hand and made sure I got to the stadium. You made sure I got my first beer in England was with you. And we kind of joked about last week on the preview show for you that, you know, West Ham definitely had to be better than last year. And unfortunately, the exact same result. I was less drunk, less jet lagged and everything else, but thanks for coming on the show. And I'm sorry that I must just be jinxing it again.
We're here again, aren't we? It's a case of deja vu. Another 3-0 hammering at West Ham.
It's there was getting up yesterday. I had there was not a thought in my mind that we were gonna do that. I knew the team would be slightly changed, but I thought there was just no way we could possibly sit and do that again. And I mean, same thing. Arnautovic brace. The team just looked kind of disorganized, and individual mistakes killed us. And they didn't score off of our corner. I guess that's a positive from this season. I guess
what it is as well. If you look at Arnautovic, he hasn't been interested for most of this season. I mean, he damaged us last year, but Arnautovic, and they like to call him Arnie, don't they? But he's like the friggin' Terminator when he plays us. He vanishes or injures himself for the most part of the season, then respawns and scores 2 goals against us. Hurts us once again. We've made him look good, and he's certainly a villain in our support, you know. But I think yesterday was a case, like some of the fans have said in our reaction videos. Were they on the beach? Were they in the shop window? I suppose we'll get to that, won't we?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a weird thing, and if we weren't safe, you know, you assume we would put out a different team. Things might have been different, but that doesn't matter because this result, the last away day of the season, it's going to leave a little bit of a sour taste in people's mouths. And you look at some of the reaction online, people are definitely kind of upset with several players, and I don't see anybody blaming the manager. Nobody's going, why are we doing this or anything like that. I think everybody understands, but the result wasn't great. But I guess the silver lining is that we're safe. We can move on, and hopefully next weekend against Huddersfield, the team kind of returns maybe to normal. But before we do that, thanks for coming back on. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate you having me on the preview show last weekend as well.
Yeah, no problem. It's always good to speak to you, no matter what the circumstances are. And, doing a terrific job and going from strength to strength. So, keep it up yourself. And let's get into the autopsy of yesterday.
Yeah, sure thing. And if anybody doesn't know, you guys are at The Ugly Inside. All the links are in the show notes. YouTube channel, the podcast, all of it is available. And you guys are you expanded to do the podcast this season, and I think it's been a great addition to the lineup, because now we have the several podcasts that come out on early in the week on Sunday and Tuesday and everything else, and then John's been dropping them in here and there as he moves, and then you guys kind of bring in the new week, and I don't know if people realize that we all kind of talk to each other and all kind of work together, and I think I think it all makes for a nice even flow of I don't want to say content, because I hate that word, but content. But like you said, let's just jump into the lineup for yesterday. So I'll be honest, I didn't get up as early as normal yesterday, and as I woke up, the lineup was about to come out, and everybody was predicting Forster to start, just kind of because we were safe, and he hadn't been featured since I want to say Spurs in December of 2017. I think that was Boxing Day. That was terrible. And we look at some of the lineup. We know there were injuries out there, but were you surprised or disappointed at any of the players that made the starting lineup?
I think Forster wasn't too much of a surprise. Ralph had hinted it in the early on in the week in the stories and the reports and things like that. And actually, I think it was great to see Forster back on the field. You could see he was sort of growing with confidence as the game was going on. And you could see his character as well was, over the last 18 months or so, which he hasn't featured, he's looked sort of down in the dumps, in a dark hole, unable to get himself out of it, almost sort of felt like he was in a spiraling episode of depression
almost, yeah.
So it was quite sad to see that, but he's worked hard. Ralph was giving him a chance, and for the most part, yes, you can't really complain about too much of his performance. I think he made some decent saves, some comfortable saves, as you would a keeper. But of course, there will be some of the the critics, maybe for the third goal. I'm sure we'll get to that later on as well. But and so unfortunate for the second too.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to come in for some criticism. Some of the comments we were getting for the mini match reactions or mini match summaries.
The thing I have to say about that is that some of the comments on the mini match reactions aren't. I think they're too rude to broadcast. Let's say.
Yeah, I can't read them on here. But yeah, they are, but I guess for me, part of it is, I think people were going to say those things, not no matter what he did, but any mistake that was made by Forster, Stevens, Elianusi. I think they're kind of in a hole, and they're almost in a no-win situation. And I understand that they haven't necessarily been great over the course of the season, but I think we find ourselves, it's similar to, we're in the same situation in terms of West Ham, where it was a terrible result and then we didn't play well. But we find ourselves in a similar situation with those players as we did with Redmond last year, where we just seem to be kind of on them over and over and over. And granted, they need to play better, but I think we've shown that the abuse of players online doesn't necessarily help. And with what seemed to be depression with Forster and him. There were reports that he didn't feel confident in having the number 1 shirt at some point, even when people were talking about him leaving, and you want people to do better and be okay, and I'm not sure we're helping at this point,
Yeah, I mean, I suppose being a footballer, you put yourself out there for criticism, and to a degree, it is sickening to see how many comments that are abusing these players personally. I think if we look at the three mentioned, Forster, Stevens and Elianusi, Saints fans, we love a scapegoat. We love to hate somebody. We always love to blame somebody because of what's happened. I think if we look at Nathan Redmond last season, he was a scapegoat. He had so much abuse. And, Shane Long even admitted that he's come off social media because of the abuse and because of the critics. But Nathan Redmond has set an example for the squad to to get his head down, work hard before the season's even started, and come back a new player sort of almost this season. He's gone to another level under Ralph Hasenhüttl, but I suppose if we look at the two examples yesterday, Jack Stephens seems like he's the flavour of the month that people would love to hate, and Elyounoussi nowhere to be seen, I suppose, over the last 4 or 5 months. We haven't seen him much at all since, I suppose the Derby game was his last game that I can remember, in fact, anyway. But I suppose if we look at Elyounoussi, he didn't do anything wrong, but nor did he do anything influential on the pitch yesterday. And Jack Stephens, the third goal, you could say he could have done a lot better, trying to close down the man a lot quicker. But I suppose if we look at the defensive, options at the moment, you'd say that probably Stephens is fourth choice. And I think it is quite obvious that we do need a leader at the back. Stephens hasn't stepped up to do that. And a leader is exactly what we need to pair them with, whoever it may be, Vestergaard, Josida, Bednarek. But Stephens just doesn't seem like he's learning from his mistakes at the moment.
No, he seems to be stuck a bit and slightly apprehensive in his kind of defensive duties, and he doesn't seem to kind of know what to do right away. Like he's definitely hesitant as he moves in, and people are moving around him, and I don't know, it's frustrating to watch him, but it's also disappointing because he played better than this. Wasn't the end of last season? It was 2 seasons ago, right? I think when it was him and Yoshida, or was that last season?
Well, I think he made his debut, didn't he, in the League Cup final at Wembley because of Van Dijk's injury. I think at the time we thought Jack Stephens got a lot of potential here. He was given, the number 5 shirt number last season or so, given him a bit of confidence, and it looked like he was going to be, a future staple in the team, if you like.
Yeah.
But yeah. I suppose as we've added to the team, I think his abilities have been exposed somewhat.
Yeah, I think that I guess one thing I could say about the team in general yesterday was all season, it doesn't really matter what center backs have been back there. We haven't looked great in a back four. And yesterday we played a back four and we didn't look great. And I'm not making excuses for the guys that are out there because I don't think they played well enough, but it's that's a 4-man defense and we're focusing on one guy, and I think that I think what it shows is that we definitely need some improvements in around the center back situation, because like you said, we missed 2 center backs and all of a sudden we are scrambling to try to find somebody to play that position. And I think I would have much rather seen the back 3 that we saw at the end of last week, where Bertrand slid into the left side of a back 3 and Target came in. But I think yesterday was more about giving some guys a chance to play in a position for them to kind of audition for Ralph and for other teams. And I guess one of the questions I have to you is did anybody really help themselves yesterday? Did anybody really like show themselves for a move, or did they instead kind of maybe hurt their chances of getting a move to somewhere where they might actually have a chance to play, first team football?
I think they've hindered their chances, if I'm honest. And this is exactly the same question that I asked a couple of our fans yesterday. Did anybody suggest an extra sort of added value to their price tag? And it seemed, based on yesterday's performance, is almost taken off a 0 rather than added a 0 to their value. You can't really pull too many positives from yesterday's performance all across the pitch. I suppose if we do look at small positives, it is Nathan Redmond once again being influential, but I suppose the fringe players that did come in didn't do themselves any justice. It's almost hindered their chances of moving on. And people are suggesting that even McCarthy may be on his way out because it's easier to get rid of him because no one wants to take Fraser Forster's £80,000 a week wages. Similarly, what I think my prediction for Elyounoussi future is that we may see what we've done to Woeful this season. Send him out on loan to a European club, see how it get on. And maybe Elyounoussi may come back. It is his first season, and here, people are, you could say, give him a chance to, get into the Premier League, get used to the physicality, but he's shown no signs of sort of adapting too much. And this is a fine case of maybe over scouting somebody. And Elyounoussi, I don't think he quite fits Ralph's system, if I'm honest.
No, and you mentioned the Derby game earlier, and I would say the one thing that stood out to me in that game or that match was at one point he got the ball down the sideline and was in like a dead sprint with somebody, and didn't have the pace to get away from him, and didn't have the strength to hold him off. And it was, I hadn't seen that from him yet, and I thought that was one of the places where he would be kind of, I don't know, better equipped to deal with that, and he just didn't have it. He didn't have the pace or the strength, and I think that's shown up this season. I thought there was one good run from him from kind of deep yesterday where he managed to control the ball off his chest, and then he tried to hit some volley. I think it was early on, maybe 12 or 15 minutes in, and the shot just way wide. There's no chance it's going in, but it's like if you do more of that stuff, I think it's fine. Maybe play that inside forward role a little bit. Allow the fullback to overlap and things like that. But I'm just not sure he has it. And I would ask, do you think he goes on loan? If you're going to send him on loan, if you could choose, would you send him into Europe where he's kind of already succeeded? Granted, it wasn't in a huge league. The Swiss league is not a powerhouse by any means, but do you send him there, or do you maybe see if you can get him to stay in England and send him down to the championship, maybe where he's going to have to be more physical than maybe some of these leagues in Europe?
I think he may get shown up in the championship, if I'm honest. I think it's quite obvious that he hasn't got the strength or I suppose the mental capacity to, play in the championship. Who would want to take him? Somebody, I suppose if you look at it historically, Leeds are a big brutish sort of side. If he plays against the teams like Leeds, he'll get shown up, he'll get beaten and bruised. I think the style of his play suits European football, and I won't be surprised if he goes somewhere like Spain, somewhere like Vigo, Leganes. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to Basel, play a little bit of Europa League football, Champions League football. What can you say? It's an odd situation, really, but I suppose if you're looking at the options out wide, Elyounoussi, Redmond, Ward-Prowse, Armstrong. Again, a bit like Stevens, you could say he's third or fourth choice. And it was quite obvious when Redmond came on, he was more of an influence on the pitch with runs, taking the players on, with shots on target. In fact, Redmond were only shot on target yesterday, tells the entire story. Mm-hmm. So he clearly isn't creating enough. I think maybe he does need to look at Redmond as an example, get his head down, bulk up, gain some strength. In the summer, come back. We're having to fight for his place. But I suppose if you're looking at his interviews to European press, he's still enjoying his time at Southampton. He's willing to prove himself.
Yeah. And I would say the one thing with Redmond was guys are looking to give him the ball, and he wants the ball. He's showing up in situations and saying, "Get the ball to my feet, and I will take people on," which he wasn't doing last season. But he is the only player on our team that really wants that responsibility. And when he came on yesterday, the game did change a little bit for us. Granted, we still we didn't get back into it at all. I don't think that was going to happen. But he was, we don't have anybody else that does that. And I wouldn't have thought at the end of last season that Redmond was going to turn into that player. I think we all knew that he had some of the attributes for that, but I didn't know that he was going to be able to turn the mentality around, I guess. And so with that said, I'm not sure Moy has the physical attributes to be able to do those things. And so it's going to be hard to kind of pick both of those things up. And like you said, if he goes down to the championship, I think the championship might be better preparation for him if we're planning on keeping him. But if we're trying to get him off the books and out somewhere, I would definitely think that the European loan situation would be a better fit for him, simply because he might actually look good when he's there.
Yeah, I think it'll also be quite embarrassing, if you like, for a team such as ourselves going out to watch Elyounoussi 30 times, I hear, on the scout reports, to bin him off after a year. That would be embarrassing for the club, But it's also a worrying case of a lack of depth in star quality in the team. It seems like Redmond is the star man alongside Højbjerg and Ward-Prowse that can change the game. Elyounoussi is not a game changer. I'm afraid to say that, but I want to be proven wrong. And, Redmond has done it. He's proved the critics wrong this season, and why can't Elyounoussi do that either?
Right. And I would say if we think about guys who have gone off to the championship, one example of that is Sims. And when he went, he couldn't get into the team, had to come back, and has been, when he's played, looked okay. Looked at times, similar to what he did in the past, like come on for a substitute appearance and look fantastic, get a starter, play a little bit longer, not look so great. But Moy hasn't really offered any of that. He's just kind of been there, and I can't, like you said, I don't think he did anything wrong yesterday, but he definitely didn't show himself to be somebody who can change a game, and maybe that's the fact that he hasn't played in so long or whatever it is. But to kind of get back to the game, directly after he makes that run, misses that chance. West Ham were the better team up to that point through like 15 minutes or so, and Jan Valery, who's been pretty good this season. I think all of us have been surprised with how well he's played and have been really happy with his performances. It would take away maybe the red card. And I would say, once again, him in a back four hasn't looked great. Think back to the first game under Ralph when we played against Cardiff. I think that's when he gets himself kind of in trouble more. But he gives that ball away, just leaves it short, and West Ham jump on us and they go up 1-0. And I would say that they've been the better team, but I'm not sure they deserved a goal at that point.
Well, Valery's, error leading to the goal was catastrophic. It was, this time it was fatal. Luckily for Stevens last week against Bournemouth, it wasn't fatal, but the mistake has come straight out Stevens' textbook. But Valery, I think he does suit the wing back position. I think I think he's more natural with the overlapping runs. And in fact, if we look at the runs from the wing backs yesterday, we saw more underlapping runs than overlapping runs, which was seen for most of the season under Ralph Hasenhüttl. We didn't utilise the width of the pitch yesterday. We were playing quite narrow. We had no options out wide, and the Olympic Stadium, London Stadium, has quite a wide pitch, and we didn't utilise that to our strengths. But Valery has looked great. He's I suppose one of the breakthrough talents this season. Great to see another young lad coming through to the first team. I think he will be first team next season, but he's still young. It's best to make mistakes earlier on, and I think he's got the potential to be a great footballer for the football club. It's unfortunate he gave that ball away, but these are the types of mistakes that you need to learn from, and hopefully Ralph will obviously sit him down and say, hey, this is what you've done wrong. This is how we can improve it.
Yeah, on TV yesterday, they kept talking about the difference in the formation. And I think I told you this last season. I think I've said it before. I dislike Mark Noble. I'm not a fan. I think I want to say the first time that we ever talked on this show around a West Ham match, I want to say that I cut out a part. Mark Noble got a red card. And I wanted to say I cut out a part where I'm like, is he that kind of player? Like, I didn't really know him at that point. And I started to pay attention to him at that point. And from that moment, I have hated him. And I actually have a clip of you calling him Mr. West Ham last year. And I've used it a couple of times on the special delivery at the end of the show. So apologies for that. But it's... I dislike seeing him, but the midfield yesterday for West Ham really gave us a run for our money, and that's been a kind of a strong suit. You think of the trio of Højbjerg, Romeu, and James Ward-Prowse, and they've played really, really well together. But with just kind of Højbjerg and Lamina in the middle, we played 4-4-2 against West Ham last year, and we got beat. We did it again this year, and we got beat. But it didn't go well. Mark Noble actually played a pretty good pass for that first goal for them, and that makes me upset. I suppose if we look at that goal, obviously it was led from the mistake from Valery, but it was a defence splitting pass. I suppose both the defenders, Bednarak and Stevens, perhaps at fault, but a little bit slow to react. But it's a simple ball at the end of the day, and it's one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and we don't do ourselves any favours, do we? No, and we've. You ask any Saints fan this season what's hurt us the most, and they'll say probably individual errors. Just the lack of, we don't have the quality to make up for the individual mistakes, and so we have to play a solid kind of game. And anytime we put ourselves behind like that, we're going to struggle to get points and take those things from it. So it's disappointing to say the least. But one thing I noticed from us is we haven't played a lot with the ball this season. We've generally, most matches, looked the best when we've played kind of on the counterattack or had the chance to press teams and force them into mistakes. And yesterday, the end of the first half, the possession stats were about normal for us, where the other team has almost 2/3 of possession or somewhere around there. And we didn't look good. Like, we didn't have that pass. We didn't have that. The runs that we were generally making, we weren't creating kind of opportunities in their third. We weren't pressing them there, and it was really I have here in my notes, like it kind of felt like a training match. Like guys didn't really know. Take this for example. We've had Redmond and Bertrand down the left a lot this season, and if you look at Redmond's help defensively for him with Bertrand and the communication they seem to have, the understanding they seem to have. Yesterday, when we put those guys out there, granted they haven't played together, but the understanding didn't seem to be there. There was, kind of passes left to no one, or runs weren't being made. You can see the guys kind of looking around and not being able to find a pass. West Ham was running down our left-hand side, their right-hand side, because Moy wasn't helping Bertrand in the same way that Redmond does. And so that stuff, I think, although understandable given the team selection, was really frustrating for us because we've seen the team work so well together kind of over the past couple of weeks. Yeah,
I think yesterday it was a prime example of looking disjointed, even disinterested. Obviously, we're disappointed with the result. And like I said a moment ago, it's a worrying case of lack of strength and depth. We do lack a leader. I think that's quite obvious. Hoiberg does his best, but we need to help each other out all across the pitch. And I don't think Elenius has got the engine as Redmond does, nor were his colleagues helping them out. We didn't see too much of the high press yesterday. And I suppose, as some of the fans suggest, that we were on the beach. We've already got our flip-flops out. Don't really care too much about the result. I think it's just a case of putting them in the shop window to see how they get on, or just some game time. But Ralph has been to the press and said, look, we need to finish this season strong, finish strong as we possibly can. So I won't be surprised if we do see the strongest lineup back at St. Mary's on Sunday. And it's going to be a sort of a rebuild, if you like, in the summer. And I think if we fantasize about transfers from it, people say we need 5. I think we'll only get 3.
Yeah, I think that's probably more realistic. But we like a villain. We also like to complain. So I think we'll say we want 5, and when we only get 3, we'll say we needed 5. And not that I'm disagreeing with that, but we'll that's just how it goes. But for me, the highlight of the first half was at one point. I'm not sure if you saw it in the stadium. Stevens almost kind of had a judo throw on Arnautovic that I appreciated, and it went unpunished, which was my favorite thing of the first half. Just because I don't want to see him score anymore against us. Of course he did in the second half, but we should just note we are safe. Like this game, the reason we saw the team we did is because we are safe and we are staying up, and because of the draw and some of the results leading up to our safety, we kind of cut off the chance to kind of jump up the table a couple of places, and attempting to put these guys in the shop window, I think, was the right decision from Ralph. And I just want to reiterate, we are safe. Everything's going to be okay. We have a chance to rebuild, because I feel like I'm starting to get angry, and I don't want to get angry. It's 5:54 in the morning. I don't need to be angry yet. But the second half, Redmond comes on for Ings. There's always the worry whenever Ings goes off early that he's injured. I don't know. I didn't. We were at the soccer field or the football field all day yesterday afterwards, so I didn't check up on some of the post match stuff. But I thought we looked better the second half a little bit to start, at least. The ball movement was better. Redmond and Long, just watching them together, seems like they seem to have fun playing with one another. They seem to understand, and they create a little bit more. Ings kept dropping really, really deep in the first half, and it wasn't working. I don't know. I don't know. The one kind of a couple of notes that I have here, Forrester, I kind of wish he would have caught one or two of those balls that were coming at him instead of punching them away. And I feel like if he does that for the second goal, I think that it stays out. But once again, it's easy to say that watching it in slow motion on TV. I wasn't, down there with guys in my line of sight and having to deal with shots coming at me all day.
I guess if we look at Danny Ings' influence, actually, he hasn't scored a few goals in about a month or two now, which is unfortunate for him. But I suppose his efforts sometimes go unnoticed. He has been dropping deep to collect the ball, but we've seen, I suppose, more of an influence and more link-up play from Danny Ings. He's almost playing this sort of false 9 figure. He's holding up the ball. He's not the biggest of lads, but what he does well is, obviously he's got a better center of gravity, I suppose, and weaves in and out sort of some of the players. In fact, holds the ball up, lays it off to Shane Long or Nathan Redmond. And I suppose historically, if you look at that, we've always had sort of a hold-up man, or at least a pivot to hold the ball up and play the balls out wide. But unfortunately, to see Danny Ings go off, I don't think he was injured. I think it's just a case of changing the shape and bringing more of an influence on the field on Saturday. But ultimately, it is poor decision making yesterday. I suppose if we look at Shane Long's opportunity, he should have hit it first time with a one-on-one against the goalkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Tries to take a touch, and I suppose if you look at the replay, in fact, he almost tries to play for a penalty. He kind of leans into the defender. The right back, Fredericks, I think he gets quite mad and shouts referee, no chance. And it's those sorts of opportunities that we need to take. The analysts say that we weren't clinical enough, and I think I agree with that. We weren't clinical. We didn't take our opportunities when we had it. And it was quite a speculative effort for the one shot on target, and the fact that the trajectory almost seemed like it was going over for Nathan Redmond. So lots to think about. And maybe you could even say, because the boys had 3 days off in the week, they were already coasting, and it does seem like obviously the stadium, London Stadium, West Ham, is starting to become a bit of a horror show for us at the moment. So, and we say, this season can't be any worse than last season, and we'll be saying this again next season. This season can't be any worse than last season. So, more efforts to consider. It's not always a given that we will beat our last game. Huddersfield are down, but I suppose they want to come up fighting, won't they? And hopefully we do give them a good send-off, but still a lot to learn.
Absolutely. And Ralph giving the guys days off, I think, the stated goal was safety. That was obviously, the number one kind of thing. And we wrote about it, or I wrote about it in the newsletter this week, or last week. And the second goal was 40 points. And the truth is we still have the chance to do that. A win on the final day of the season, against a relegated Huddersfield. That will put us above 40 points, and that basically achieves both of Ralph's goals that he stated he wanted. So that chance is still there, and I don't think he did anything wrong. I think this shows a little bit of what the team needs. It's clear to, I think it's clear to a lot of people. I definitely think it's clear to Ralph, and I bet you it's clear to the people who are going to be making the financial decisions as well. It will just be interesting to see if, given that they are able to pull the trigger and make the moves happen that we can all see that we need. And it's sometimes I'm not sure you can just have the kind of fire sale that you would want and get rid of some of these guys and change. I'm not sure it works that way in terms of finances and things like that. But we're on 38 points. We haven't won any, I think, in our last 5. I think we have won in our last 5, I think, in the Premier League. And so it's not a great run right now. We've kind of stuttered it a little bit, but we achieve safety. We give the guys a couple of days off. It maybe is no surprise that we looked a little bit like we weren't there, but I imagine that the way Ralph has worked in the past, he's not happy with the performance yesterday, and things will hopefully turn around for the last game of the season.
Yeah, I think so. I suppose we'll be working hard in midweek with his tactics, his approach, and I think we may see maybe a last few appearance for a couple of players. It'll be interesting to see which team he does go with. I mean, if we say Fraser Forster, maybe give an opportunity once again. We may see Elanusi start from the tunnel on Sunday. It is, and hopefully I think we will see Yoshida back. Obviously Vestergaard is out for the end of the season. I think that's quite a big miss in quite a tactical and a physical sense. With all 6'7" of them injured on the sideline. But I think we obviously missed that leader at the back, and Yoshida gives that to us. He's had his critics. He's proved a lot of people wrong recently, But I think it's obvious that we need a leader. We need a big, strapping centre-back to direct the play from within. But we're a team that will never break the bank. And I think that's a philosophy that Ralph will continue to abide by. He even admitted it in sort of one of the press conferences a week or so ago. We are Southampton. We do things the way that we do because it's our philosophy. But I think the best we might see is a 20 million, maybe break our record by £1 million on Carrillo. and he's another man. Do we give him a chance? I don't know. A lot of questions to consider. A lot of players to consider their future in the summer.
Yeah, and it's really easy to forget about all the guys that we have out on loan that we're going to have to deal with and going to have to address, and some of them that Ralph has never met, never seen. And I think we all have our opinions on people, and we'll see what the managers are, and hopefully those guys come back right away, and maybe I'd like to see them hopefully at least come in and speak with Ralph before they go off on holiday, and do those things so we can at least get an idea of what's going on. And it's going to be an interesting summer, and something we're going to have to keep an eye on. And I've been pretty vocal. I don't like the summer transfer window in terms of having to pay attention to it and kind of not cover it. But, all the speculation around transfers and things like that, I think the reaction to certain things and will be interesting on social media, especially because we're going to have guys that we have to make decisions on. And as you said, I don't think we're going to wind up, breaking the bank necessarily on a bunch of players. And, I think a lot of it will depend on who we can get off the books. So, I don't know.
I think it's quite obvious, actually, some of the players that we will be seeing departed in the summer. I think the likes of Wesley, who we won't see ever again, Buffal and Carrillo, question marks over their future, but even the likes of Harrison Reed, Sam Gallagher, who are now, 23, 24, they're about to reach the peak of their career, and they've not really done too much. They've done nothing of influence to suggest a first-team place in Southampton Football Club. Harrison Reed, he's been with the club since he was 10 years old. Gallagher's been with us since he was very young as well, so it'd be unfortunate to see him go away, but I'm sure Ralph will be given the information, and he's meticulous for detail, isn't he? He won't be like Mark Hughes, who's in the dark. Oh, yeah, so suddenly someone turns up on the door, who are you, sort of thing. Ralph will know exactly what's going on out on loan, and I'm sure he's got a good team behind him to report that data back. So Ralph, I think, has already made his decision for half the players that are out on loan. I'd like to see Hesketh give a chance back in the first team. Again, a young player, 23 now. Seems like he's too good for League Two. He's good enough for League One. Will he go to a championship club, give him another season, then we'll see where we are the year after that. So I think he's already made his decision on half the players.
Well, I guess that's encouraging. And like you said, he definitely is meticulous, and he definitely is, pretty forthcoming with what he wants from players. I think it's pretty clear when you see some of the changes, because Redmond was turning himself around, but he's continued to improve under Hasenhüttl in ways that I'm not sure we expected. And so I think that if Ralph is going to be, Ralph has proven to, at least to me, that he is he can get his point across, which is, I think, something the last couple of managers haven't been able to do to the players. But we have a couple of questions, and I know you have some other obligations, so we should not keep those guys waiting. But this one comes from Rob Maddox on Facebook, and he says that, do you think Saints are going to be frugal in the summer transfer market? And if so, where do you think the academy players coming through will play? And you kind of hinted at that a little bit in terms of Hesketh and things like that, and Reed as well. But if you were going to say how many players were going to be on their way out, if we had to just list them off, you mentioned some of the guys out on loan, but who else do you think makes way? And anybody else besides maybe Hesketh, you think, coming up from the academy?
I think Kane Ramsey will be given a chance next season. I think that's quite obvious. He's been given a cameo or two this season. He's filled in at right back and filled in at centre back. We've also seen a cameo from Callum Slattery and Tyreek Johnson this season. So we may see them emerge more often next season. It also depends on where we invest, I suppose, in the summer, whether we want to decide to give Ramsey a chance more in the first team next season, or whether we decide to invest in a backup right back. But I think, there's a couple of players actually that are playing to the top of their ability in the under-23s. I don't know if you've seen the highlights in the playoff semi-final last Friday, where I think it was O'Connor that smashed in a free kick straight out of Ward-Prowse's textbook, albeit with his left foot. So he could be given a chance, along with Will Smallbone, who's the captain, I'm sure. He put away the penalty. So there's a lot of ability coming through. I think if you also look at Alfie Jones, looks like a good player. He was in the matchday squad. In fact, he was away with St Mirren earlier this season. Didn't do too much up there. But again, perhaps another player coming back down to Saints to really give himself a chance more often in the first team. I mean, if you look at Josh Sims as an example, I think the team weren't helped by 3 different managers this season. He wasn't given much of an opportunity. I think he was hindered with an injury or so. Mm-hmm. But he's come back refreshed, raring to go, proven the team wrong, played a more part in the first team. And so we could see some of that coming through, emerging from the under-23s next season.
I think that continuing that kind of integration and that kind of movement from under-23s to the first team, I think that does a lot for our ability to recruit good young players. I think that does a lot for the fans. The fans will give those players a little bit more time to develop. People will now say that Jack Stevens is not one of our own, and he did come to us quite late, but he did play through the under-23s and stuff like that. But I think that type of thing, I think that's what the club is built on, and I think that's good, and I think Ralph is up for that. And Ralph even hinted a little bit earlier this week that the players that we are going to look to sign in the summer are not going to be finished products. We're not going to sign guys who are at the absolute top of their game. We're gonna sign people who need a little bit of polish and need a little bit of time to adjust and a little bit of some improvement, and they will, after they play for us, will make another move. And I think he's okay with that. And I think what I want to do, what I want to be able to say I'll do, is just enjoy the time that the players have, enjoy watching them improve, enjoy watching them play. But I don't want to sign guys who can't contribute to the team. And I think that's the mistake we've made over the past couple of seasons, is we've taken perhaps too many chances, like you said earlier, over scouted a little bit, and thought we were kind of pulling out something that nobody else saw, and really maybe we saw it, maybe nobody else saw it because it wasn't there, But let's move on to another question. People can send in their questions. We already read one from Facebook. They can do that on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. And then the patrons of the show have the priority for getting their questions answered each and every week on the show. It's one of the things they get, including a private chat and a bonus podcast episode every single month. If you're interested in that, you can check it out at patreon.com/SFC delivery. Kevin McGee, who is one of the patrons of the show, sent in this question. He says, which players do you think won't be at the club next season? Will we see any of the loanees return? And we kind of hinted at this already. We talked about it a little bit. But any of the guys on a loan, do you think will be back, or do you think that you think they're all kind of done?
I think Ralph will want to have a look at some of the players before we decide on the future. I suppose if we look at the 4 prime suspects in Wesley Hoot, I think we've seen the last of him. He was very much Mark Hughes' man. He'd done everything he could to keep himself in the lineup. Almost suggests that he was sleeping with Mark Hughes. That's why we saw him every week. A bit of bribery there, but who knows? I think if we look at Cedric Suarez, not favoured by Inter Milan, not favoured by Southampton. So I think we may see the last of him. He didn't look interested before we shipped him off to Italy. So I think we've seen the last of him. And I think if we get him for 10 million, we made a small profit on him. I think we've got him for about 8. So it's a small profit, not too bad at all. And I think we'll get a lot of suitors for Cedric, a player that's almost retained his value. If we look at Guido Carrillo, £19 million panic buy last January under Maurizio Pellegrino. We'll do well if we get anywhere near that value. It seems to be doing well under Pellegrino at Leganés right now, scoring important goals. But like I sort of suggested earlier, we're a type of team that like a target man. And actually, we saw quite a lot of energy from Carrillo last season, popping out with an assist or 2, holding up the play, big, strong physical presence, over 6 foot. I think he is. So it could be an opportunity in the air. And that's what we've missed. We're a short team, all apart from Vestergaard. We don't offer too much threat up top. So use his ability to his strengths, I suppose. And I suppose if we look at Sofiane Boufal, another enigma, if you like, the ability to change the game on a sixpence, and we saw that with the amazing goal against West Brom last season. But it's his attitude that everybody questions, I think Ralph would be the man to keep him in line. But again, is he going to play for the team, or is he an individual? And it seems like Ralph only wants players that are going to play for the team. So my, I suppose, prediction is that we've seen the last of Boufal.
I would agree with that, simply because I think if you look at the demands on the individual players, the demands on the team, under Ralph's system or in Ralph's system, the the guys have to work extremely hard, and there's not room for a player to think even for a second that he is bigger than the team, and two, there's no room for kind of dissent or disagreement amongst the squad. Like, you can't have somebody dividing the locker room even a little bit. Everybody has to really believe and trust if the system's going to work, because the moment that you put in those extra miles and then you have somebody come in and do the prima donna thing, or do what Stuart Armstrong did last week and just hold on to the ball just a little bit too long and try to dribble out of it. You can't have that because you take the collective work of the entire team and you have kind of put your individual highlight reel above that. And I don't think the team's going to stand for that. I don't think under Ralph's system we can do that. I don't think Ralph's going to stand for that. So for that reason, I would say Woeful should probably go somewhere else. But as you said, he can be one of those guys who his U2 highlight reel is going to look great. You can. I still have a short little video of him that I use in class all the time, where he just kind of dribbles the ball through, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 people. Doesn't do anything with it, loses the ball eventually. But I cut it off before then just because it looks better if you do it that way.
He's a street player, isn't he? Southampton learned on the streets, and that's the type of player you see down the playground, with the ball that just sticks to his feet. The Moroccan Messi is what Nick dubbed him last season. And I suppose if we get his attitude in check, it could be an influential figure in the team next season. It all depends on how, I suppose, Ralph wants to set his team up. We say that we've done better under the 3 centre-backs with the overlapping full-backs, but in fact we've seen Ralph play this 4-2-2-2 under Leipzig and got a lot of success from it. So we could well see Woeful playing one of those central attack midfielders behind the striker, but like I say, it all depends on what philosophy and which tactics that Ralph wants to solely, or I suppose primarily, employ next season.
Yeah. And before we get on to the last question here, if you were gonna sign just a position, if you say you said 3 signings earlier, what positions do you sign?
It's got obvious. We need a centre back, a leader, someone that can direct the team from deep. I think we need a right back backup, I suppose, and I think we need a striker, a natural goal scorer. I think it's obvious Charlie Austin's playing his last games for the club. He's been given the green light to leave the club in the summer. As for Jack Stevens, so you could say those two are like for like replacements, albeit an improvement, an upgrade, if you like. So for me, I think it's centre back, striker, backup right back. But if we get another midfielder, an attacking midfielder, which can be more of an influence, I think that is an ideal summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the centre backs I like the 3 centre backs we have in terms of Bednarak, Yoshida, and Vestergaard. But you put any 2 of them back there, and they're missing a big. They're missing something. I'm not even sure what it is. I was going to try to come up with something, but I can't. But you look at Vestergaard, he just doesn't have the pace. You look at Bednarak, he doesn't quite seem as confident playing in a back 2 as he does on the right side of a back 3. And Yoshida kind of has it all together, but you got to have a fitting partner for him. And I'm not sure he's quite vocal enough to play with Bednarak alone. Nor does he. Really, I don't think he's comfortable enough on the ball to play with Vestergaard alone. And so I think that, we need something there. The right back situation, like you said, it's Valerie or Ramsey, and I would like an actual right back behind him. And then, like you said, the striker, I think Long stays. I think Ings obviously is going to be around. And, I think if you replace Austin, I think that'd be fine. Cause I think our midfield has been pretty good. And with Lamina back in the mix and healthy, we have 4 kind of midfielders to rotate through the 2 or 3 spots. If you add maybe some competition, get rid of Moy, maybe send him out on loan and have somebody else to compete with Redmond and Armstrong for those attacking midfielder positions, which Lamina can also play. I think you're looking at a pretty decent midfield there. So I think that's kind of good. So we do have one more question from a patron, from Dave Lee, who is actually here in the States. He says, question for the next episode: do you and Freddie have any final match day traditions? I ask because I always go to grab a locally brewed 22-ounce breakfast stout, crack it open for the 7 a.m. kickoff, and drink half during each half. It'll taste even better this year since Southampton are safe. And, obviously being on the West Coast with me, the kickoffs are early, 7 a.m. Do you do anything special on the last day of the season? I know you have your traditions on match days in general, but anything special on the last day of the season for you?
I suppose I'll answer that in a sec, but I suppose if we look at the transfer policy, I mean, who wants to buy our players for a team that has finished 17th and then what is it going to be, 15th, 16th at best this season? So we're not going to see a fire sale of all fire sales like we have seen in the previous summers. So that will be difficult. As for, I suppose, match day traditions, we often like to go down. I mean, it's not just a final day tradition, but for a home game, we like to head down to the Five Rivers, excellent bar down in Beavers Valley. For those closer to home, do make sure you check it out. They're having a live band, in fact, on the last game of the season, which should be quite cool. After the game, so a bit of a celebratory mood, if you like. Let's have a couple of pints before the game, and then head uptown after the game. If it's an away game, an away game wouldn't be complete without Wetherspoon's breakfast. Cheap and cheerful. We did that yesterday. There's always a Spoons within, a mile or so wherever you go around the UK. So that's that.
I think I've admitted this to you before. I thought Wetherspoons was a grocery store for a long time. Turns out not so much, but maybe I didn't manage to go to Wetherspoons while I was there, which I don't know. Well, we had the bar right next door to the hotel, and so I went there quite a few times, and we had a Sainsbury's next door the other side. So I went in there and bought quite a bit of beer as well, and I mean the beer there was probably the cheap, and the bar at the next door, because I was on the, I guess, I don't know what side of the river it was, but it wasn't the ritzy side. It was kind of the other side, right near Waterloo Station, and everything was a lot cheaper than if you just crossed the river and tried to buy the same thing. So I enjoyed what I was getting there. So in terms of match day tradition for me, a final day tradition, no. Usually the last day of the season is a bit of a mess because it's my daughter and my son also play sports, and it's generally the end of their seasons as well. So it's kind of I've been I don't want to say reprimanded, but I've been given disparaging looks as I'm running away from my kids' games to try to catch the final, kick of the ball or get an interview or do something. So I have to figure that out and be a little better about that. So no, the match day tradition for me is make sure I have the espresso ready and try to be awake before the team news comes out and settle in to type some notes and just watch the game. And I've moved some stuff around in the office where I watched the match the last two games and we didn't play well, so I've rearranged it again in hopes of next week being better. So I'm doing everything I can to hope that we can kind of turn it around a little bit. But yeah, so I don't know, for you, in terms of just doing the ugly inside stuff. I wanted to ask you a little bit. The last season and the season before, we talked a lot about it, kind of off the record, in terms of what it's been like to kind of cover the same thing over and over. Have you noticed a change this season in terms of the fan reactions and just the general mood around things?
Yeah, I suppose so. I decided to change our content this season just to add, I suppose, more value to it. And to be honest, I think it got a bit samey last year, trying to steer away from the generic kind of fan channel content with it. And I wanted to add a bit more thought to the process. I think now with this season, we've done the match build-up show, also available to download and listen along as a podcast. So trying to make it more accessible at the same time as well. Also rotating the guests, because partly down to other people's commitments, we can't always commit to every week. But I've obviously spoken to you a few times, been great to speak to you and a few others as well. And I suppose as for the fan reactions as well, I decided to strip that back because, again, I didn't want to be just like every other fan channel there, stood outside the ground with a camera, with a lead, a light on top of the camera. It tracks the flies, So I've gone a bit discreet this year, and I've just scaled back my gear to just a sort of a grip on the phone, and then a microphone that just goes in it. And also I can just shove it in the pocket because, half a dozen times a season, in fact, on away games, you get stopped by, the security sort of stewards going through the gates. And especially remember West Ham last season, there's so much hassle because I had this DSLR camera in my bag and said, "Oh, this is a professional camera. I can't allow you access into the game." Rah rah rah. And I just thought I had enough. And then so I stripped it all back, looked at a few mobile sort of grips and handles, and it works this season. And actually, my phone's got the capability to shoot in 4K, so it's great from that perspective. I can also edit on the phone, especially like I did yesterday on the go on the train home in the pub. So that's that, and it seems to work.
Yeah, and I think the ability to kind of do that and those decisions you made, I think, have been really, really helpful. I have particularly am a fan of podcasts. I'm sure that comes as no surprise to anybody that has listened to this or anything else. I think I've said it a bunch of times, but I have a hard time sitting down to watch a 30-minute long video or a 20-minute long video. So the idea of being able to pop it in my ears and make some pasta or do some yard work or whatever it is, that's basically that's how my day works. I don't watch a lot of TV. I do listen to a lot of podcasts, so I appreciate that. And I guess just before we wrap up for this, I'd like to say thank you again, and especially because you first came on the show in episode 7, and I was reaching over my head. I was definitely trying to get some guests that I had no business getting, and I would say that the Ugly Inside is one of those. And it's been a pleasure to speak with you this season and last season. I have fond memories of my time in London, mostly because you taught me how to ride the tube, you taught me how to do all that stuff, and I just genuinely appreciate everything you've done for the show and for me. And it's just been wonderful. So thank you for that. And before we go on now, just I guess any other topics that we should discuss just before we end the show.
Oh, well, it's great to see you or speak to you this time round, and hopefully we do see you again next season, and maybe we can crowdfund that somehow. Who knows? So hopefully you've taught some life lessons jumping on the tube. But I suppose any other topics I want to mention, Franny Benali's Iron Fran Challenge, his attempts at 7 Ironman triathlons in 7 days. For those that have been following, he actually had to, postpone, I think, day 5 and day 6 because of his health, really. And to do 4 Ironmans consecutively is just superhuman. The man's a machine, and what he's done is incredible. And I saw him today around on the marathon in Southampton, and actually well done to everybody that have completed the Southampton marathon and half and 10K, etc. So those that are listening, so well done to you guys. But Franny, hoping to raise £1 million for Cancer Research UK. And I don't know what the figures are in the US, but in the UK, we certainly are affected by cancer a lot. It's 1 in 2 of every people are directly affected. So what he's done is truly incredible, truly superhuman, and he deserves everything that he needs to get. There is a petition, in fact, online to sign to make Francis Benali a knight. So Sir Francis Benali would be a true recognition and achievement of his efforts, and I hope he does raise the £1 million. He deserves it, and he's had an incredible support team from his physios to the swimmers, the runners, and his family, and of course the riders that filled in for him the other day. And I suppose if you want to donate, if you can, in the US, head to ironfran.co.uk and you can donate that way. But if you're in the UK, you can donate quickly and easily by texting FRAN5 or FRAN10 to 70200, and every little helps, and let's help him across the line. Right now, at the time of speaking, he's raised over £915,000 collectively across his 3 challenges, so he deserves to get across the line.
Yeah, and he was in the £700,000 range just a couple of days ago, and he's been... So if you have been waiting to do this, like that final push is here. This is day 7. When we're talking. So even as you listen, the time to donate is now, if you can. It's a pleasure to be able to do that. And for anybody in the US, if you donate about about 15 pounds, it works out to just over $20. So that's if you're looking for the conversion stuff there. And you can do it via PayPal, which is nice and easy. Good way to get money across. Having sent money to plenty of people and bought plenty of things, I've been using PayPal more and more. They do not sponsor the show, just like to point that out. So yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen from him is, I've been telling a couple of people about it around here. So we have some endurance athletes at school and stuff like that. And they kind of were like, oh, he's doing it for recognition. And I was like, no, he's not. Like, he's genuinely doing this for for cancer research, and he is the most humble of individuals and the most hardworking. And so, as you said, cancer affects a lot of people. A lot of people in my personal life have been affected by it. So it means a lot for me to watch him do that, and I hope his health is the number one priority, obviously. And it was really, really nice to see just the people around him step in to make sure the challenge got done, even if it wasn't him. I thought that was great.
Absolutely, I second that. And when I suppose this show comes out, he will have finished his challenge. Hopefully, he smashed that £1 million target. But what I would like to see, in fact, would be nice from the football club. But I suppose it hasn't publicly been announced. But even if every member of the first team at Southampton Football Club donates £1,000 to the cause, that would be £25,000 collectively, and that'd be a huge help. A huge chunk towards the target. Yeah, we've seen Adam Lallana, in fact, donate £5,000 to the cause. But I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it'd just be a good suggestion to £1,000 out of an ordinary professional footballer's weekly wage is nothing to them, isn't it, really?
Yeah, Fraser Forster, £80,000 a week or something like that is what it is, over that. So, it not to say that, they don't need their money, because I'm sure that when you make more money, you spend more money. But I think that can be, if we can scrape up $10, $20, $100 to give in, I think they can too. So yeah, but Freddie, thank you so much. This has been fantastic, and I look forward to catching up with you, hopefully, over the summer and into next season. And the plan is to come back over next year. There's a guy at school who wants to head over and see some things. So I may be the one playing tour guide, but I'll rely on you to help me out. And I still have my Oyster card from that day. So thank you.
All right. Great stuff. Yeah. Good to speak to you. Keep up the good work. And I'm sure we will speak again soon.
Yeah. And put all the show notes to everything, or put all the links to everything for the Ugly Inside in the show notes in case people don't know how to get there. But we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Freddie.
Great stuff. See you soon, mate.
That does it for this episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Special thanks this week goes out to Freddie from the Ugly Inside, and actually the entire Ugly Inside crew. They've done fantastic work for basically my entire life, although I haven't been following the team that long. But if you don't check them out, if you haven't checked them out, you should. From the website to the forum to the social media and YouTube channels, all of it is really good stuff. So follow along. If you haven't, there are links in the show notes. And thanks to everybody who gave this show a listen. Thanks to the patrons of the show. You guys make this possible. I really do appreciate it. And I have a little bit of an announcement. At the end of the season, generally we do a little bit of a fan call-in show where everybody gets a chance, or not everybody, but people get a chance to share their views on the season. We're going to do that again. Patrons, I will be in contact with you on the Patreon site, so check that out later this week to set that up. Everybody else, stay tuned to the social media channels. I will put out the call for that, and we'll get some of you on the show. That will air not next week, because next week I get to talk with Jay, who runs the Southampton page. We're going to break down Huddersfield. He'll be at the match. And then the week after, we'll get all of the fan reactions to the season and that. So stay tuned. That is part of what is coming later. If you don't follow this show on social media, you can do that at SFCDELL_IVERY on Twitter, on Instagram. We're also at Facebook at facebook.com/SFC Delivery. And don't forget about the newsletter. To get all of that and learn more about all of that, visit SouthamptonDelivery.com. That is SouthamptonDelivery with 2 L's.com. Check it out, sign up for the newsletter, and I will be in touch with you on Friday. All music for this show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the intro credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. Special thanks also goes out to the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. They do the logo for the show. Matt does fantastic work. So fantastic, the club actually hired him. And last but not least, congratulations to Fran Benali on the completion of the Iron Fran. You are truly a legend. If you haven't donated yet, you can do so. The link is in the show notes. He's within £50,000 or so of completing his goal of £1 million raised for cancer research in the UK. So please, 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 if you can, donate just a little bit. That'll help. As mentioned before, if you haven't subscribed, you can do that at southamptondelivery.com. If you're enjoying the show and you're listening on iTunes, consider leaving a review or just share it with a friend, whatever you find to be the most beneficial. Really do appreciate it. And we will be back next week. Thank you so much for listening. And until then, remember that together, we march on.